Hi, this is Erika Awakening, and we're back for day 9 of the 30-day personal power challenge, which is rapidly picking up speed and power as we go along, which is to be expected. Today we're going to cover an issue which you may not think about in connection with power, but it's actually very important. And that is the issue of boundaries. Boundaries is not my favorite word to describe this, but I use it because people know what it means. And the reason I don't like it very much is that boundary to me implies a separation between two people, and that's actually not what we're facilitating here. We're actually facilitating deeper connection between people. However, since boundaries is a word that many people can relate to, we're going to use it in this video. And that, by the way, goes for other words that I sometimes use in coaching. Sometimes I use a word even if it's not exactly fit because it's useful in some way. So here's the thing with boundaries. Most people don't really know what it means. And I'm going to give you a definition. I personally, at the beginning part of my journey, read a bunch of books about this and found them to be wildly unhelpful. Mostly because nobody could really clearly describe what it means to have healthy boundaries. And like much of the books, many of the books I was reading during that time period, it created more chaos and confusion for me than it solved. All this happens for a reason. Ultimately, it led me to create this whole system. So let's be glad it happened. So I want to give you a really clear definition of boundaries. Now, a clear definition doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to use it exactly in your life right away, because you're going to need to do some inner work in order to be able to do this. But it's still helpful to have at least a starting point. So this is how I see boundaries. Boundaries really just means you have internal clarity about your values. Very, very high level of clarity. Now, this will be a progression. At first, your level of clarity is not going to be very high, and you're going to need to be patient with yourself. And some of your boundary setting at the beginning is probably going to be fairly sloppy. That's okay. Don't be scared to get dirty and muddy while you do all this stuff, okay? Because this is how you're going to calibrate to the point where your boundaries become very crisp, all right? Now, so it doesn't really mean boundaries in the sense that we're not building a wall around ourselves. Rather, you want to think of this as internal boundaries that arise out of your values. So I'll give you an example. One of my very strong values is integrity, and honesty goes along with that, which just simply means that we keep our word about things that we promise to ourselves and to other people. If you don't keep your word to yourself, you will be very sloppy keeping your word to others. And I can tell you, if you ever want to be a master manifester, this is one of the early issues you must get handled. You cannot be a master manifester if you are not in integrity. And I mean integrity in all of your relationships. Integrity with money, integrity with sex, integrity with eating, everything. Okay? And it means that your word is sacred. So, knowing that this is one of my core values, it's very easy for me to set a boundary when somebody breaks a promise they made to me. Immediately, my value system says, no, not okay. Now, what most people will do when they haven't developed themselves very substantially yet is they won't really say anything, or they might get really angry. They don't usually do that until later. They're out of touch with their feelings. They don't even recognize there's been a boundary violation, and they don't say anything. And then they let the anger and resentment brew and build until at some point they blow up. That's not healthy boundaries, okay? So healthy boundaries just means you know what your values are, and then from there you know exactly what is and is not okay in your belief system. And believe me, as you become more and more advanced with manifesting, this will become more and more important to you, because you will realize that every time you let somebody cross that boundary, you're compromising your manifesting efforts, because you're not keeping the clarity of intention that you need to be a powerful manifester. So you've got to start speaking up early and often. You'll also find, and this can really happen, I know a lot of you are interested in coaching and healing if you're not already doing it. One of the things that can happen to coaches and healers if they don't have good boundaries is that, you know, we want to help everyone. Unfortunately, when somebody who has codependent patterns comes to you for help, they may not have good boundaries. And then you as the coach must have good boundaries, or else you will end up getting drained by people who, for example, really just want the attention and don't want to get better, or don't want to pay you, or whatever, etc. You must, like for example, for financial manifestation, you simply must decide that you are worthy of financial abundance and you are going to have it. And then the world can argue with you from now until, 15 years from now. And it won't matter, because you've made up your mind within yourself what your value is, and they can say whatever they want. You're not gonna compromise. Compromise is of the ego. Higher self does not compromise. It always finds a solution that serves everyone. So people who compromise get very, very angry. This is actually very, very advanced material, and there's only so much I can teach on this video. So please, if this is an issue in your life, sign up for personal coaching with me. I am very good at teaching this skill with clarity, and I won't do it for free because that's my boundary. You will need to sign up for sessions, but I'm really, really good at helping people get this kind of clarity and start having a healthy self-esteem so that they don't let this stuff happen anymore. It's actually one of the most difficult skills to teach as a coach, because codependent stuff tends to be its own downward spiral, which is very difficult to help people break out of. So it will require some persistence and commitment on your part. And please only sign up with me if you're committed, because what you're probably going to get from me, based on what I've seen with these patterns, is some very hardcore tough love. Because that's what appears to me, from everything I've seen, to be what finally snaps people out of these ridiculous patterns where they let anger and resentment brew and all their energy get drained, and it's just... Anyway, it's not what we want. So we're going to tap for this, and both about our own boundaries and respecting other people's boundaries, and about clarity of values. Because if you're not clear on your values, like if you're sitting there thinking that, oh, money shouldn't be that important to me, you're not clear on your value yet there. Don't expect to manifest financial abundance. It's not going to happen. You have to have made up your mind that money actually is important, and you're going to have it, and it's important, or you won't set good boundaries. Alright, let's go on karate chop. Even though I don't even know what the word boundaries means, and maybe I grew up in a codependent family and a codependent society, I don't want to let go of my fears and doubts about this issue. I don't know how to set good boundaries. My values aren't clear enough to set good boundaries. And frankly, I don't want my values to be clear. Because part of me is scared that if I start asserting good boundaries, I'm going to be judged, criticized, punished, excluded. They're going to think I'm selfish, greedy, And I don't want to let go of any of these fears. I choose to let them go anyway.